Thank you for tuning in. You're watching Burnham Podcast on YouTube or maybe on Rumble. You can also find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. So wherever you found it, know that you can find it other places too. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, here's how you can help. Head over to patreon.com/Burnham Project. Thank you very much. So tonight I got to sit down with a man who is a big part of what is known as Levee Church here in Rome, Georgia. It's a ministry outreach that caters to the needs of the homeless community here. Maybe there's one in your town. Hopefully there's one in your town. Every town ought to have a group of guys just like these guys. Mr. Wes Chaffin, welcome to Burnham Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Burnham. Well, here we are with Mr. Wes Chaffin. How we doing, Wes?
We're doing great.
I asked you that like we hadn't been here talking for 20 minutes.
I know. Thanks for having me here. And
no, thanks for being here.
I appreciate the invite, really do.
Yes, sir. We're going to get into the life and times of Wes Chaffin, and we're going to talk about your ministry. So we'll just start right there. If it's all the same with you, what are you into?
Well, it's really not my ministry.
Sure.
This is kind of. I think we want to talk about Levee Church and where did Levee Church come from and how did it all evolve and who were those primary players. Well, first, you have to give the glory to the Lord, and He just kind of put all the right people in the right places, and so there was a culmination of about 4 or 5 guys. About 10 years ago, Mark Huckabee, Greg K.
It's been 10 years you guys been doing this?
It's been over 10 years, I think.
Wow.
It's a little bit, it's probably say 10, 11 years. Mark Huckabee, Greg Cater, Ken Ward, and a couple of others, Bert Hunt, started out right across the street here at Partridge.
Okay.
Started doing a ministry. I think they were actually meeting at another place before the Partridge. And it kind of evolved in this organic setting, kind of spawned from Life Church, and they started this Sunday morning ministry for the homeless downtown.
So it came out of Life Church?
It came out of Life Church. It did. But it had different players in it. It had different people from different churches, but those were the kind of the primary folks. And it started and it took off, and I came into the ministry about 17. When the Lord redirects our life, and you start asking the Lord for the job that you want Him to do in your life, He'll give you things that you wouldn't expect. So I was praying for, give me a job. What's it going to be? And one afternoon, I get a phone call from Mark Huckabee. Hey, man, we got a homeless thing going on downtown. Starts about 8 o'clock. Why don't you come in and just bring a case of water and join us? And you don't have to do anything. Just see if you want to, do something with it. I don't know. I won't do that, Mark. I don't want to hang out with homeless folks and do all kinds of stuff like that. At 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning, I'm still in the bed, and. So I just kind of blew it off. 3 or 4 months later, Mark calls me again. He said, "Hey, you didn't show up the other day." I was just like, why don't you show up and let's do this? Well, this was about December 16. Well, I let the year turn over into 17, and I show up one Sunday morning. And by that time, the ministry had moved down to Moe's, down the street here. And it was inside, and I walked in, and there was homeless people in the room there, in that little catering room off to the side at Moe's. And I was real out of place, brought my water, sat it down, and just kind of looking around like, okay, what in the world am I doing here? And I think Greg spoke, and I think David Humphrey spoke, because David speaks quite a bit at some of our things. And I remember crying all the way home. And saying, God, what are you doing? I don't want to do this. This is not me. And I got home and I was so convicted and so overwhelmed with the Holy Spirit saying, Wes, you got to do this. It just lit a fire under me.
Yeah.
And for like 3 or 4 months, the Lord began then to work in my life to kind of direct me. This is where you're going to be for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know how long I'm going to be.
Right.
In this homeless ministry. I don't know where God's taking that, but I'm just going to be obedient to it and do it. And knowing where it came from, because it just started with the guys downtown just ministering and feeding, and those guys got it started. I really haven't done anything. I told Greg when I first started, and I told Mark, I just want to help where I'm needed.
Yeah.
I don't have to speak. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. And I don't. I'm kind of like the event coordinator and that sort of thing, and get people together and make sure the communication's going back and forth during the week so that everybody can make sure the food's there and who's going to be speaking on Sundays and stuff. So it's kind of evolved, and that's kind of my role now. But during those early days, Danny, I was just serving and handing out food. Mm-hmm. But what I learned is that I learned how to love people.
Mm. Which is key in any ministry, right?
And you don't have that. Danny doesn't have it in his heart. I don't have it in my heart just to love somebody. God gives us that. Mm. And I prayed for it, and he said, you're going to be loving on homeless people. And when he gives you something like that, you want to know where it comes from.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, holy cow, And with all that said, it spawned into this love for serving folks that were the least of these.
Yeah.
And they come in all different shapes, forms, and sizes. So Levee Church is an organic ministry. It's made up of chaplains and volunteers from several different churches around town. We all kind of take turns. Life Church, Redemption Church is kind of like the tip of the spear. And then we have Westminster out in West Rome that helps us. Rush Chapel, little tiny Methodist church up north in Shannon. They have a great congregation. They do once a Sunday. And we have several different other congregations. North Rome Church of God will often have a couple of people come in. Hollywood Baptist. You'd be surprised how many churches they'll have a couple folks show up and just want to see what's going on.
Yeah. No, that's, but you think about ministry, right? And so many people, the first thing they think of when they think of ministry is a pastor. Right, well, I want to be in ministry, but I don't want to do that. And then you think about what you guys are doing, and a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to do that either, and it's a reminder, I think, to sit here and talk with you that ministry is not what we want it to be. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not what we would pick out, or it's not what we think we're suited for. I would never have said, I'll be the pastor of a church one day. That was just not something I ever wanted to do. I always kind of knew that God was pushing me that way. And like you said, he presents you with something, and it's no longer an option.
It's not.
And you can try to make it optional, but it's just going to burn you up from the inside until you get it out. But to see you do something different, it illustrates that there are different facets of ministry. And even in what you're doing, you're not the guy standing up in front of the room talking. Mm-hmm. You're handing out biscuits and bottles of water, whatever it is you guys have got going on that weekend. Mm-hmm. But that's ministry too.
Yeah, it's all. Just loving on people.
Yeah.
And, as we were talking earlier before we got started, at the end of the day, it's about a relationship.
Yeah.
And if we want to take it back to Scripture, the soul, when we open the Bible and we start reading, it's about a relationship to the Word, a relationship to the Father.
Yeah.
It's a relationship to Christ. It's a relationship to these people who are at the most vulnerable, the weakest, the most lowest. I've seen really, really pitiful folks, And in most cases, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Denny, there's nothing you can do. You could dump $1 million on them, and first of all, it'd be gone in a few months, and money's not going to solve their problem.
Right.
In a lot of cases, housing won't even solve their problem. There's a lot of different issues because the homeless has so many different colors to it. And I mean colors like the colors of a shirt. And they're in different colors, they're in different fabrics, and some are very, very worn. Some have holes in it. And those different homeless individuals, it's just a different bolt of cloth than the public that we see here today. You know, we can walk downtown and there's people in their businesses, there's people coming from home shopping and stuff, but the homeless are off to the side, and they have their own culture, their own set of rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have their own network of communication. You'd be surprised how fast word gets around amongst that community. And they're very close-knit. Most of them I would say this, what I would call the Broad Street crowd.
Yeah.
Because you have the West Rome crowd, then you have the North Rome crowd, and then you have that place, you know, down in South Rome, and then the Lindale bunch.
I didn't know there was.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ministries that are helping. Forget the guy's name, but he does a ministry over on Maple Street. I've communicated on several occasions, but there's a lot of people that try to just be kind to these people and give the relationship, and that relationship is love and care and kindness and compassion and empathy. And what else? What's another word for it? Just to show that, hey, you can talk to me and it's okay, and you share what you need to share.
Yeah, just being open and transparent with people. And
I
don't know, there's a way, you know, and it's through a relationship that you can disarm them where they don't feel like they have to come in there with their dukes up, thinking you're going to judge them or, you know, whatever.
Right.
You know, they don't, there's conversations that you've got to have with somebody who is on the street and doesn't want to be. Like, these are the things we need to do to fix, you know, and that's tough sometimes. But to get to that point, they've got to know this person wants what's best for me. You know, and that's a time thing. But, you know, I when you said a second ago, and I've heard other people say, there are a lot of cases where there's just nothing you can do. So what do you guys do in that instance?
You know, if there's nothing you can do, you know, a lot of people are going to probably kind of scoff at this, but you just pray for these people.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the one avenue that we do more than anything, is pray for people who are at a impasse with just life.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people in this area, and well, let's go back a second. So let's talk about those different fabrics of folks. Yeah. So you have the rank homeless, people who have no home to live in due to circumstances.
Right.
Then you'll have a population that is in addiction. Then you have a large population. I wouldn't say large. Large is a relative term. But you have a population in town that has mental illness. And then you have a population that is in addiction and has mental illness. And then you have these transients, these people that just show up from all over the country.
Yeah.
How they find it, how they find Rome, Georgia. We'll come across people from Ohio, California. They'll just pass through. You'll see them one weekend, they'll be gone. Never see them again. But you see the demographic there, and your demographic is probably 60 white, 40 male, 80 men, 20 women, percentage and demographic. Most people are over 40.
Yeah, I would say just, I have quite a few interactions here on our main street here in town. But yeah, over 40, but not over 60, I wouldn't say. You may have a different experience than me.
No, that's true. That's true. We've got 2 ex-cons that are over 60.
Yeah.
But they've just recently been incarcerated, and that's another demographic. You have the ex-cons.
Yeah.
And that's a real hard demographic because, believe it or not, they are out and they can't get a job.
Yeah.
And it's either their offenses or just their conditions that they have no home, they have no clothes, they had nothing. They are on the street because they've just recently been at Jackson or Hayes or wherever.
Wow, yeah.
And they're here. The family don't want them back home, and there you go.
Well, where do you go? I just got out of prison last week. Please give me a job.
Yeah.
That's
now,
a
even
tough
ask
spot.
a family member that question, Danny. I mean, let's just be real about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of families do not take in those people. Some do.
Sure.
Some do, but some don't.
Right.
And then that person then is on the street. Mm-hmm. And there they are. And so what we try to do is that we provide a small meal. Bob Landwerland, he's just a saint. He, out of his own pocket, will spend upwards to $100, $120 in food each Sunday and help feed when one of the churches is not providing food. But it costs about that. It costs $100 to $200 each Sunday just to feed us. And then there's a like message. Typically Mark Huckabee or Greg Cater, or we'll have David Humphreys come in. Ken Ward had done it for so long, but Ken Ward had done it for a long time, and then he started his missions Moldova and Ukraine.
Yeah, Ken's all over the world now,
and it just really spin him up. Yeah. And he comes back and he sees people who are in war-torn areas, and he sees people that are homeless that could probably do better, and it just gave him an attitude. And I get that. And Ken has inspired so many people, including myself, to just love others, and he just does it. He's God gifted with it too, and he's kind of taken a step back, and but we're all just kind of working in it together, and trying to make it less like a church service, more like a fellowship.
Yeah. Well, fellowship is the word. When I first heard it described to me, I thought, that's a fellowship. That's what that is. That's what popped into my head. So it makes sense. But you couldn't get a lot of these folks to come to church. Y'all come on into church. Like, maybe it's not, I don't want to go in there with the guy wearing a tie, and for people to look at me and go, well, he's dirty and he just came in off the street. Right. But you can get them to fellowship. Right. That's a little different.
Yeah. And two, somebody said, and this is often said a lot of times, is, well, these people can get them a job. Why don't they have a job? Most of these people, and I mean this with the highest respect and the highest love and care and compassion, most of these people are not fit to carry a job. I'm just being real.
Yeah.
And an employer would not want them just based on an addiction issue or a mental illness issue. They've got all kinds of cultural, social issues.
Can they do the job? Are they going to show up?
Right. Can they be? Because most of these people have never been raised like you and I have.
Yeah.
Like you and I come from loving homes. Our parents cared for us. Yeah. Our different levels of educational socialization are different than these people, and that needs to be considered. And to say that these people could come into a church, there's constant interruptions, there's talking, there's noise, and you just kind of have to love them. And Greg Cater tells me this all the time. We got to love them where they are. Yeah. And we can't have some crazy expectation that they're going to sit through a full song or a full sermon without wanting to get up and throw something in the trash. Yeah. Or they're going to cough out loud, and we've had fights break out. Well, not nothing really bad physical.
Yeah,
but,
right.
But it's just part of it, and so the population. It varies, it ebbs and flows in the demographic, and we're just used to it, and we just kind of bend with it as God leads us. And I'm just so fortunate that I'm with the same kind of hearted people.
Yeah.
Because Mark has that kind of heart. Greg Cater, Ken Ward, Bob Landwerlin. We got a bunch of folks from Redemption Church. Wendy Tinch and her husband, Shane Tinch. To kind of get off on the side here.
No, go ahead.
So we needed a woman downtown.
Yeah.
We didn't have a woman that could kind of help us, because to see a woman in a state of homelessness or a state of addiction is one of the most pitiful things you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Especially if they're an older woman. It's just, you start thinking like, oh, what is her story? You know, what happened to her, you know? And you look at them and they're just, it's awful. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And this went on for a year and a half. Had a couple of ladies come down there, and I thought, okay, this lady's going to be the one that's going to pick up the standard and help us on the lady side, because it's hard to minister one-on-one with a woman with their needs and have the things that they need to talk about.
Yeah,
and we really needed a woman in that role. But one day I was sitting at home. It was October 2 years ago, and I get a phone call, and it's a girl on the phone. She said, "Hey, my name's Wendy. Is this Wes?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I was told I need to talk to you about homeless, that you do a homeless ministry downtown." I said, "Well, I don't do it. We just have one downtown." And she says, "Well, can I come?" And the next thing you know, God just drops this really vibrant, energetic, has a story. She came out of addiction herself. Oh, wow. Woman that has just unbelievably just been a huge impact to the Levee Church. And she has helped us with the 12 steps downtown. We'll go over sometimes, and that'll be a part of our program to do the 12 steps, the Alcoholics Anonymous 12 steps. So we do it from more of a biblical standpoint. She'll do that, or she'll just get up and do her testimony a couple of times. And her testimony is unbelievable. We're talking someone who was caught in meth addiction.
Yeah, I was going to say it probably sounds similar to what a lot of those people are going to relate to.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And not only did God send me her, but right behind her, 3 other women came in: Robin Paxton, Judy Sorrow. There was one other lady. They came in. And just they just show up, and if there's a lady there, they can go over there and mingle with them and ask them questions, and it really helps us spread the relationship out better.
Yeah,
and fellowship better without kind of singling the ladies out, because it's really hard to have those conversations. Yeah, about clothing, about what are your needs today.
Right. Yeah, it's tough that there's a gender line there, and it's there.
It is,
for a reason, and it takes somebody of the same gender to go over there and say, "Yeah, these are the things that I know that you need, and let's talk about those things." And
Wendy and her husband Shane have been just really great, and Judy and Robin, and they've just stepped in and done a lot of things. We've had a couple of ladies with Rush Chapel have really stepped up and done some fantastic just ministry down there, just to care for those women. And I'm telling you, one thing to see, older gentlemen that are in that condition, but to see a woman is fairly disturbing.
Yeah,
it'll bug you.
Well, it feels like you're looking at mom, right?
It does,
or grandma maybe.
It does. Absolutely. So, but yeah, I mean it. I guess we just kind of rolled out with this, this discussion, but there's so many things to it that you would never imagine. But it all goes back to the first thing that we have to do with these people is have a relationship with them.
Yeah. And
the relationship could be, hey, I care for you and I love you and I'm gonna pray for you. I can't bankroll you.
Right.
I don't have $1 million. Yeah. What are your basic needs today?
Yeah.
Do you need some food? We can get you something to eat. Do you need a tent? Do you need a blanket? Do you need some clothes? Those are kind of the basic items just to help them get through the day.
Right. Yeah, which is not, I mean, I don't know, depending on what the population is like, how many people are knocking on the door. I mean, some of the biggest churches around here could only give for so much, for so much and so long anyway. Mm-hmm. And then certainly what you guys are doing, you're a little more limited financially, from a resource standpoint, because you're trying to feed these folks and they do show up, and then you're trying to make sure they've got something tomorrow, or as far as you can stretch it, I guess. But so what are the financial constraints you guys are working under?
Oh, wow. So that brings us up to the next big thing. So when about 2 or 3 years ago, we would have money come in and somebody would give us a donation, and that donation could be $1,000, it could be $500, it could be $20. And we'd just take it and we'd pocket it and we'd go get whatever we needed for that Sunday or for that person that we knew or we ran into that needed something.
Right.
And there wasn't a true level of transparency and accountability to that. And I had talked to Greg and I said, Greg, we gotta do something. We gotta set up a 501c3 to kind of get this, to get us kind of from a legal standpoint and from a transparency standpoint, where we can help people and it be basically legal,
right,
and up and up. And Mark Huckabee he and I had talked about it, and we met with several other guys one day at Hardy's over here, and we said, hey, you want to be a part of this? Some of them said no, they had too much stuff going on. And me and Mark and Greg decided to start, our 501c3, 3LM of Rome. And 3LM stands for the least, the last, the lost, and the marginalized. Mm. And so what we do is we are the kind of the money end of the Levee Church piece. And we also help with Ken Ward's ministry. When Ken takes off to Moldova, we'll pull a little bit out and hand him cash and say, take off with this, and the Lord's gonna tell you what to do with this money, and then we'll have people who'll need some bills paid. Yeah, because we've got the ex-con that can't get a job, but he's got a place. He's got a place to stay.
Right.
He needs a car repaired. We can help him with that. There's people that need a heater.
Yeah.
There's some homes that don't have heat, that don't have air. That don't have a refrigerator, that do not have the water cut on. And a lot of people don't realize when you are without these basic needs of electricity and water, you live in a different, it's just like a different time.
Well, it's almost a third world situation.
It is. And you're in that does something to you mentally too, I guess, because I've never been in that situation. I've been camping.
Right.
I've done that sort of thing.
Choose
before,
that,
but I've never been without it.
Yeah.
So, but our organization, 3LM of Rome, we focus on just making sure that we can appropriate that money in the best way possible, because you'll have. Let's say the other day we bought some car parts. Mm-hmm. Now, how do you know that that's going to go to car parts? How do you know spending that money is going to go to car parts? Well, I ordered them and sent them to an address. I did not give him cash.
Right.
And very rarely do we give cash. We have given cash. Very rarely do we keep someone up in a hotel.
Yeah.
Because that's just a good excuse to go do some drugs under a free roof.
Right.
But we have done that, Danny.
Yeah. Well, you got to look at, you're talking about relationships, and you've formed a relationship with this person, and they're not going to go into this hotel room and snort the cash you gave them, or, however that works. But so, I imagine there's times when you understand the person and the need on, the individual level, and you do individual things for them. So, yeah.
I encountered two people out in Kingston Highway, a man and a woman whose house had burned, but their water was cut off as well, and they were just sitting outside the Dollar General, and I walked up to him and I said, how can I help you? What do you need? He said, we couldn't get the rest of our groceries. I said, what were your groceries? So I just took our card and went in there and bought them $30 worth of food.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy them steak.
Right.
I mean, I bought them sandwich meat and mayonnaise and bread and some a couple of knickknacks, to get them through the day. I said,
Yeah.
"Do you need some toilet paper? Do you need a blanket?" I mean, basic stuff that anyone can do,
Right.
but not everyone does it because they don't know how, or they don't know. There's just a way to do it.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it like that, but it could be a dangerous position you could put yourself in. If your wife walks up to someone, or my wife walks up to someone, and they want to help somebody, it's different. It's different. But people who are accustomed to it, like myself and Greg and the rest of the guys and gals, it's not that hard. Excuse me. But I fed them. I gave them a ride home, and he looked at me and he said, "Can you get me a voucher to get my water turned on?" And I'm still looking into that, because we have to talk about that. We have to, we just don't go out and just give away money.
Right. Yeah.
But
you can. You won't have it for very long.
But we try to, Danny, help them as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Because this is where I get kind of. This is where I get, and you might throw a rock at me on this one. But a lot of churches don't react that fast. And they
can't throw a rock at you.
And Danny, they need to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one thing that Redemption Church liked so much is that we were very proactive and we were aggressive in working with these people, because you have the shelters. You've got Davies, you have Naomi Center, you got Hope House, you got all these different shelters.
Yeah.
But are they making that life that they're covering, is it moving in a direction that they can get out of the shelter, they can get them a job, so on and so forth? Because some of these people, like I said, are not going to be able to get a job.
Right.
And the first thing you have to do with that person is know who they are, know their story, because my pet project was with a special needs. I'm not going to mention his name because you'd know who he is. A special needs guy here in town, but he had a physical ailment, and he probably had the mental capacity of maybe a 6 or 7 year old.
Oh wow.
And he had been on the street for a long time. He was staying in Section 8 over at the high rise. But there was no way to manage him. His sisters couldn't manage him. The family couldn't manage him. He's my age or older. And the homeless population was taking advantage of him because they knew he was getting the check.
Yeah.
And he was just being horribly taken advantage of. And we helped. It was our first project. We helped his sister get guardianship over him, and he's now in a group home in Mableton, Georgia.
Yeah.
He's under 24-hour supervision in a clean, safe, warm, cared for environment with professional staff.
Yeah.
And he goes to workshops every day in DeKalb County. He's with other people in the same kind of situation he is. He gets to come home if he wants to come home. His sisters can go and get him. I visit him all the time, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't started a relationship with the fella.
Yeah.
You just don't come up and say, "Oh, I'm just going to go help this guy."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because they don't know you from Adam, and can I trust this guy? Even with the mentality like you're talking about, where he's operating at this really low level. Right. Yeah, trust is still, like, kids know to trust or not trust somebody. You know? And so you break that ice and you form that relationship, and that's not a one conversation thing. That's like an ongoing thing you have to develop. What is that process like?
Some of them can be tumultuous. And some of them can be very easy. Some of them can be like, okay, I guess I'm a good reader of people, and I can tell when someone's safe. I can tell when someone's lying to me. I can tell when somebody is not giving me the whole story.
Right.
It's not a lie.
Yeah.
They're just not giving me the whole thing. And when God's gifted you with certain of those abilities, you can kind of figure it out and kind of get to the meat of where you need to go with that individual.
Right.
One of the individuals we helped, and Ken and I worked with him, we got him to I call it a dry out center up in LJ. It's off the beaten path. It's a place for men to get off drugs. Mm-hmm. The guy's name that runs it, it's just
is it what's our buddy in LJ?
It's an LJ.
Is it Andy Craddock?
No, it's Bill. His name. I can't think of his name, but it's.
I know the place you're talking about.
Maybe we can tag it on the, and we can. But anyway, we got him up there.
Okay.
And it was right before COVID hit. And the guy, he came to us. He said, "I got to get off this meth. I'm going to die. It's going to kill me." And Ken and I, we took him up there, and we went and visited him a couple times. We'd take him food. We coached him. He was in this really cool environment with other men that were going through the same thing.
Right.
And it wasn't the perfect environment, but
man, it's better than the street, though.
Oh man, it's better than the street. And then when the government started handing out those checks, he had caught word that he had a check, $1,500 check in a post office box, and he walked off the reservation.
Oh.
And you can't go back if you walk off. And all that work and all that time and all that money and that we spent trying to get him in and trying to get him taken care of, it was real disheartening. And now if he came back to me again, I'd love him. And
yeah,
you still have to vet him again, and I'd vet him. Are you sure you want to do this? Because you're going to be gone. When you're going to dry out, you can't be around the people you've been with. The people you've been with, or your family. This is to focus on you.
Right.
And unfortunately, he just walked away from it.
Oh, man.
Whereas there are folks that we're helping a guy who right now lives in a tent. I'm not going to say where because I don't want him to be bothered by anybody.
Right.
He lives in a tent, and he has a full-time job at Texas Longhorns, Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. I know another guy that was in the same boat, and there was a church that was trying to help him. I don't know, you can tell me how common a story like this is. It's a church that was trying to help him. They say, "Hey, man, you got a job. You live in a tent and ride a bicycle. Like, let's get you a car. Mm-hmm. Let's get your driver's license and get you a car." No, I don't want to do that. And he put it off forever and ever. And they finally just nailed him down one day and said, "Hey, man, let's help you do this." They said, "You know what? I don't need that because if I got a car, I got to buy this car. I got to pay insurance. I got to have somewhere to keep it. I got to have a house, and just rather not. Just keep my whole paycheck as it is." And I don't know, like I said, how common that is, but
it's very common.
Yeah,
it's very common, and you'd be surprised how many people. It takes us, I guess, to another part of the conversation. A lot of people don't want to get out of it. They don't.
Yeah.
And they've got just enough. They've got community kitchen that gets them through the week.
Yeah.
They've got the handouts. They can go to a different church and
get different church every day and get clothes and food.
Get panhandle right here on the street.
Yeah.
Somebody can give them whatever. And they can just eke by, and that's it. And sadly, that's how they live. And, we've had not scores, that's wrong. Okay, scratch that. We've had multiple people that I have been with that have passed away since we've started this. They've passed away due to COVID, due to illness, due to suicide. And it's just tragic to know that no matter how hard you loved them, how much you prayed for them, that was still the trajectory of their life.
Yeah.
And I want to say that we can save them all. And everybody be kumbaya, and it's all cool and groovy. Everybody's going to have a home. We're going to get them home with mama or their husband or their daughters or their all their loved ones, and everything's going to be all okay and cool. It just doesn't have that kind of happy ending like a Hallmark TV made for movie kind of thing is.
That's heartbreaking, man. Because you do to do the thing you're talking about. It's your whole heart, right? You're pouring all of yourself into this.
You do.
and you see this person and they don't want your help or they don't know how to respond to it, and you got this whole gamut that you've kind of laid out for us in terms of who's who. But man, somebody asked me a couple episodes back on here, as a matter of fact, what would I do about the homeless epidemic, because it's everywhere. Right?
It's everywhere.
We're in a small town.
Not Floyd, Rome, Georgia, Floyd
We're
County.
An hour away from Atlanta, right? There's a lot of woods between here and there, but we've got our own issue the same way they do. Yep. Have we incentivized this lifestyle for these people like we're talking about?
In a way we have.
Yeah.
In a way we have. And, and I was thinking about this driving over, do we enable this population to continue to just subsist at that bare minimum?
Yeah.
Are we? Is Levee Church doing that? And some people could argue, yes, you are, Wes. But then again, I have to go back to what Greg Cater says. No one truly wants to be in this state. They truly don't want to be there, but sometimes they're so far down and so far gone that they will concede to this is as good as it's going to get, and that's where they're going to stay.
Yeah.
And we got to love them where they are.
Yeah.
And they'll never be without any addiction. They'll never get out of not being drunk all the time. And they do know that Jesus Christ is their Lord and Savior. They know that, but they won't ever get out of that. They won't ever come out of it. And we've got to we have to accept that,
right,
and love them where they are.
Well, I appreciate that about the way that you've explained things here, and you talk about vetting people, and you guys are not just handing out a bunch of cash and let us pay all your bills, and right.
It takes several weeks to figure that out.
Yeah. But it's not just, you're not out here going, we can save them all. If we just give us a little more money and we'll take care of these people. And you guys understand. You're coming in with realistic expectations.
Always.
That not only might you not be able to help them in any way, but they might come in and disrupt your church service.
They could.
Or, be a real problem or any of those things. But you extend that grace anyway, and you open the door for them to come in. And I struggle with that, with the encounters that I have out here. Is this the person that I give $5 to? Is this the person that I take across the street and buy them lunch? Do they really need help with their bills? Do they, because I get approached by people and you get these stories. You've heard them, and it seems like the more detailed the story is, the less likely it is to be true a lot of times. The guy come up and go, hey, true. I just need help with my water bill. Okay, cool. But then, I got a job and I make money, but all my bills came out at the wrong time. I didn't expect it. No, and it's just a story. And you go, okay, probably not. So I struggle with that, I'm sure any true believer would. Somebody approaches you and they're not wearing nice clothes. And maybe they smell. They say, hey, they don't have, hadn't had a shower in a couple of days. Whatever it is. We're trying to, split that hair and go, is this the person that I help, or is that not? But it's tough without that relationship.
If you don't have it,
knowing these people.
If you don't have that, it's really hard to then make that transaction.
Yeah.
And that's the most important part. And there's one thing about a transaction, like me and you sitting here, and I'm going to sell you my pocket knife.
Yeah.
And in that transaction, how much value is in that pocket knife? If we don't instill some value in the conversation or in the relationship, then that transaction is not going to be real comfortable, or it's not going to be real easy. So there has to be valuable. They have to see value in us, and they have to know. We see value in them. Because at the end of the day, we're all children of God, and we're valuable. We're extremely valuable. We're valuable to the kingdom. You're valuable to the kingdom, just like I am.
Right.
You was talking about grace a second ago, and I'm reminded with something that Ken Ward he'd always say. What does Paul always start out with his letters? Grace and peace. Grace. And grace comes before the peace, except for one of the letters. I think it's peace before grace, but I think I don't know which
typically grace though.
But it's typically grace that he says, "Grace and peace be with you," or he opens up the letter, and a lot of people just think that you just got to butter them with kindness or something, but just the grace to know that this person is probably not going to react to me like I think he's going to.
Right.
And how do I respond to that?
Yeah.
And in that transaction, then you just you allow them to just be whoever they are.
Yeah.
They're not going to give you their best.
Right.
They're just not.
Yeah.
They're either going to be drunk, or they're not. They're going to be angry.
Yeah.
Or they're going to be sad, or they're going to be. There's no telling.
Right.
But you have to give them that grace, and if you don't, you can't transact the opening of that relationship. And a lot of people just get that wrong.
Right.
Because they thought, he didn't appreciate anything that I did for him, or he didn't even say thank you. The gall.
Yeah.
No, they're not going to know how to say thank you because they've never been taught to say
that's the difference, right? They don't know. They don't understand.
They've never been taught, Danny.
Yeah.
So, I think we have to get it. It's got to get down to really the basic blocking and tackling of relationships.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for a lot of the other organizations here in town, but we try to get to know them. And yes, we know them by name.
Yeah.
I walk up to them and talk to them by name. Now, there's a couple of them that I'll forget their names. I mean, I can't.
I'm terrible with names.
I got 8 kids, man. I can't remember all their names. But it's one of those things where it gets back to the relationship. And one thing that Ken and Greg and Mark and all the other guys have taught me is that you can't ever take it personal. Like you can't. I think the guy with that walked off the thing in LJ, I put too much emotion in that because I thought, okay, we're gonna save this dude.
How can he's you not?
He's gonna come out. He's gonna be dry. He's gonna be free of methamphetamines. He's going to get a job. He's going to be fruitful. He's going to have a family. And I was just like thinking all these great thoughts, and it broke my heart.
Well, how could you not, though? You know what I mean? Like if you're pouring all this into that guy, how could you not have that heart and that hope for this guy? And I don't know, maybe that changes your perspective, and you still have that hope, but you're also realistic on the other end, going, this might not work out, and maybe that saves you heartbreak, or maybe it doesn't.
And the quote that Ken gave me, and we often joke about it quite often, is that you don't watch, you're going to have egg on your face.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're always going to have egg on your face.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're going to do this, you're going to have egg on your face. And do not get so emotionally invested until you know that all you've got to do is love them, give them the gospel, and let them know you care.
Yeah.
And when you do that, and you do that consistently, they'll know that, hey, this guy's legit. They all walk up to us, and they know that they can't walk up to us and ask us for $1 million because they know we don't have it.
Yeah. Right.
Or I can't get them a house over here, or we can't do this. We do our best to do what we can with the housing piece.
Well, you guys wouldn't be having church in a parking lot if you had $1 million, right? I mean,
no, and that brings up another thing. I was just like, once we got the thing at Moe's was we kind of moved from Moe's, and we didn't get booted out, but we left there under a not good situation. And we went up to Community Kitchen, and we stayed at Community Kitchen up until COVID. Well, COVID just cut the legs out from underneath.
Yeah.
But as I was mentioning to Chris a second ago, it did not have the population that we wanted.
Right.
Because you got a lot of people that have homes, that have cars, that have phones.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to get a free meal. They're going to do that. That's what they do.
Right.
I'm not saying anything bad about that demographic.
Sure.
But we wanted to serve the people who have nothing.
Well, that's the people with the phones and the cars and the house are not the least of these.
They're not the least of these. They can get a job if they could work anywhere in town, and they could be self-sufficient. They could do just fine. because they have a place. They have a lot of needs taken care of. Now, when COVID hit, that just kind of knocked our legs out from under us. So after all the lockdown stuff changed, Ken had met with a guy named Charles Hilliard, and he's running Park Outreach, and he meets down here at Heritage Park, and it's expensive to reserve the park. Well, we wasn't paying anything. We would go in and give Charles a little bit of money. We'd like to have done it every week, but we couldn't do it. We just didn't have the cash.
Right.
And then Rome and Floyd Parks Recreation caught wind of it, and they didn't like the fact that he was letting us do it without paying him.
You're piggybacking on his permit.
Piggybacking.
Yeah.
But we're only down there for an hour and a half.
Right.
And all we're doing is feeding people, giving them the gospel and loving on them, and that's it. Nothing big. Wasn't creating a mess. I mean, we kept it managed. And they found out about it, and they basically forced us to say, you can't do this unless you pay $135 for the spot, which is an hour and a half.
Ugh.
And that's all I'm going to say about it.
Yeah.
And luckily, the Lord, he said, okay, we'll take care of this. So we get a parking lot over on First Avenue, and that's where we are now.
Yeah.
So we've been in several different places, and we're nothing on Charles, because Charles is paying for it.
No,
He's doing
Charles
a great
is,
ministry.
Yeah.
I love Charles Hilliard. He's a great guy. He has a very focused, very regimented program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, he does God's work. I'm telling you, Charles Hilliard is a saint.
Yeah.
And everything he does at Park Outreach is great. But we get a few of those folks before he gets them. And we minister to them as well. And they come in there just a little bit softer, we think.
Yeah.
And ready for his message. So,
well, that's what it's about, right? I mean, we're sitting in our church right now, and maybe somebody, comes to my church for a time. You've been to a church that you don't go to anymore, right? So have I. We all have, and
right.
it's a stages of life thing, and it's, you've reached the end of your time where this relationship is effective for both people, and you move on. Mm-hmm. So what you guys did was prime those people for what Charles is doing, and it's
right.
I don't care where you go to church, as long as you go,
as long as you go to church.
You don't have to, I always tell people there's 8 billion people who haven't been to my church. Like, it's okay if you don't come.
That's
just
right.
Go to the one down the street. I don't care. Yeah,
that's right.
But yeah, you guys working together on that, and that's
and we've always worked together. I don't think from a homeless ministry standpoint, we have never not worked well with anybody else. It's always been, we'll help you, they'll help us, and it's just been great. Yeah. So there's not that one group that don't want to work with you. No, that's not the case. We would have liked, for the city county government to have helped us out a little bit, knowing we're not doing them a service, okay?
Right, yeah.
We're not, Levee Church is not doing the community a service. And somebody says, well, you're doing everybody a service. No, we're not.
No, that's not what that is.
We're a charity.
Yeah.
And that charity gives as much as we can within the reasonable confines of our budget.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to do that until the Lord calls us to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all you can do.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
So, yes, we would have liked to have had that shelter, because let me tell you something, Danny. When February rolls around here, there'll be some days in the 20s.
Yeah.
And I've been down there.
Well, we had a couple last week.
And it's cold, and it's raining, and right now we don't have shelter.
Mm.
So, I think you had mentioned a second ago, before we got started, would you like a place with a roof? I'd love to have a place with a roof.
Yeah.
But it's like you were talking about a minute ago about the guy with the car and the insurance and all that stuff. We'd have to maintain all that.
Yeah.
We'd have to manage that. We'd have to clean the bathrooms. We'd have to manage it being locked and closed up.
Yeah.
People wanting to, after it's over, wanted to hang out and stay under the pavilion if it was raining. Well, what if it's raining? You're just going to dump them out in the street? So
right.
Leave? I mean, come on. They don't have a home to go to.
Right.
They can't go home. They can't go out and get in the car and go home and watch a ball game.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? So you have to consider it all.
Right.
Greg and I, we often said, gosh, if we ever played the lottery, if we ever won the lottery, we built a really nice building. To at least have a service where these people could come in and out of the weather.
How many people are we talking about on average?
So that's a good question. So during the winter months, it runs to about 15 to 25 people. On into the spring, we'll get 20 to 40. Summer, we can max out to 50.
Oh, wow.
We've had as many at the Levee as 60 people in our service before Charles gets a hold of them.
Yeah.
So it varies. Now, it varies. And, I was telling you about, we've had people that's been with our ministry or the ministry that we do at Levee Church for right at 10 years. Same homeless people have been coming. So they have been church, quote unquote, members,
right,
coming to that church at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
There's an incentive there. They may get a biscuit or they may get a cup of coffee, or we do give out sack lunches for the rest of the day. We'll do a sack lunch thing. That costs money. That's about a $75 tab if somebody ever wants to do something for us. Donate $75 to do sandwiches. But we've got a committed congregation, if you really think about it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask. You've got, you talked about the numbers being flexing through one season to the next. What is your core? Everybody's got a core group. What is your core group like?
I say a core group is probably going to be 12 to 18 people.
Yeah.
And it's the same people. We know them by name.
Yeah. Well, you guys are not way different than us here at Rome Reformed Church, numbers wise. We're 30 on a good day, and then we're, that solid 18, 20 every Sunday. So we're, right in the same ball. We're not 10 years old, but
but again, we don't have deacons. There's not a pastor. It's more like a fellowship. And
right.
To say we have titles, we don't. None of us have titles. I call ourselves chaplains and volunteers because Greg Cater is a chaplain. He's a chaplain at Atrium Health over here. Yeah. Mark Huckabee,
you are too, right?
I am a chaplain.
Yeah.
I am on-call chaplain over at Atrium as well. And then we have some folks from different pastors will come in. David Humphreys will come in and do some chaplain work with us.
I had Dave on here a couple episodes
I love
back.
David Humphreys. He's a great guy.
He's fantastic.
He is fantastic. He's really good with kids. Good speaker. Ken Ward is an anomaly.
Let's talk about Ken. Go ahead and roll it out. I've got a Ken story for you.
I love Ken, and I can't not talk about Ken because Ken is the chaplain's chaplain because he's a combat medic, tours in Afghanistan, Iraq, seen stuff that we probably would not be able to just deal with.
Yeah,
and he knows how to love on people,
and
he knows how to be direct with people. And I adore him. He is a dear brother.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody that I could go to in a real bad pinch, if I was in a real bad pinch, no matter what, if I was to go to him, he is someone I know I could trust.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Sure.
Like your dad. Your dad's the same way.
Right.
Ken is without the credentials a chaplain.
Yeah.
And he's probably got everybody beat with just the experience. So I just adore him. He does God's work, and he does God's work every waking hour of the day. And I wish I could be like that.
Sure.
I'm not that. I'm not that.
Oh,
I'm
man.
different. I've got to.
So I don't know Ken really well. I've met Ken a half a dozen times. We've had one conversation maybe ever. But what I know about Ken, everything I need to know about Ken, I learned from a story David Jackson told me.
Or your dad told you.
Well, it was Jackson goes to Moldova, with
Jackson,
that bunch. So he's over there with Ken, and Ken gathers all this stuff to take with him, all these clothes and toiletry items and all big giant, like those big army duffel bags.
Yep.
And when he gets back on the plane to come home, he is empty-handed and has the clothes he's wearing.
That's it.
Because he's giving it all away.
Giving away his clothes. Some of the clothes he has.
Yeah, the clothes all off his back, literally. So you go to a foreign country with, you know, all the clothes you could ever need, and you come back empty-handed because you've given everything you had away.
That's right. That's the way you do it.
I mean, you look at a situation like that, and you're thinking of like the widow's mite. You know, it wasn't $1 million, but it was everything he had, everything he could round up and stuff into that bag.
That's right.
He took and gave it away. And I was like, well, I don't know this guy. We've never spent a ton of time together, but he sounds like a fantastic dude.
If there's a SEAL team, a chaplain group that's a SEAL team, Ken would be in it.
Yeah.
And then that'd be like me. I'd be the wannabe that would want to be a part of that, because I would love to go to Moldova and Ukraine.
Yeah.
I know that God is, I can feel it. I can feel it in my own, I can just feel it. The Spirit's telling me, Wes, it's coming. I don't know what that is.
Right.
But I would love to go with him.
Well, I bet you if you stand close to Ken long enough, you know what I mean? It'll reveal itself.
He is, I'm telling you, he has been at Levee for when he was there. He was Levee Church, really.
Yeah.
He's
just a warrior in every sense of the word.
He is a warrior. He is a warrior, and I know you appreciate that. And you know, a warrior doesn't necessarily have to be the guy that's going to beat somebody up. A warrior has to just have courage just to go into it.
Yeah.
And Ken is that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But it's that heart, that servant heart.
It is.
You know, above all else.
It is.
And you know, if we can't go into ministry with that heart, we don't have any business in ministry. Mm-hmm. Whatever ministry looks like. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's not. It would be easy for you on a Sunday morning as you're handing out biscuits to pull your phone out and pop a selfie and go, "Hey, look how awesome I am! Look what I'm doing."
Yeah.
But that Ken Ward type of ministry that you guys are doing that's a different animal. Yep. And it's not a hey, look at me thing. You're with a bunch of guys who don't care who gets the credit. God gets the credit. God gets the glory.
He gets it. Yeah. The only reason I put on Facebook is to show awareness of what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you guys are asking for help.
Well, I'm asking. Hey, we need your help.
Yeah.
I think one time I talked to a guy. I know the guy really well. Worked with him for years. He said, those people need to just get a job and go to work. And I think hearing that, that statement comes with the absence of love, because how can you have all the what's the scripture say? How can you have all the treasures of the world and not give to your, what is it, 1 John, I think?
Yeah.
1 John, and not have the love in your heart for your fellow man. And again, you have to love them first.
Yeah. Well, that's, the disciples asked Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? And the first one, of course, was love God. But the second one was to love your neighbor as yourself.
That's hard to do.
It is. I don't want to do. That's uncomfortable.
No, it is. It's uncomfortable. We gotta, it's just really hard to do. But if God calls you, if you're called, and this could be its own podcast there, Danny Burnham.
Roll it out.
So if you're called, in most cases, when someone's called, it's not something you wanted to happen.
Yeah.
Because I did not plan to be in a homeless ministry for 7 years and it just completely just go crazy, and we have 501c3 and we're helping people, and God's doing things, and it was God's call to get me out of a comfort zone so that he could use me. And what he just wanted to use Wes.
Yeah.
He didn't want Wes to get anything.
Right.
Because he knows what kind of lowly scumbag I've been for a majority of my life.
Yeah. Bless your heart. Not anymore. But yeah, it's not. We're not effective in our comfort zones. If we just do the same things we've always done, I could open this door on Sunday morning and go, well, I hope somebody shows up to hear me talk. But that can't be what it is. It can't be about me and what I want, and it's not ministry otherwise. Because it's about me as opposed to the love that I'm supposed to have for my neighbor.
Yeah.
And man, I don't know another ministry around here that exemplifies it more than what you guys are doing.
Well, I appreciate that.
No, you talked about working together with other homeless ministries, and I think about the church across the street, and I don't know, I've met the pastor before, but we don't work together. And then there's another church that meets down here, and I know this guy too, but we don't work together, and they don't work together. And, I'll drive past 7 churches to get to the church that I go to, and we won't even have a barbecue with the church across the street from us.
Wow.
The kingdom work has got to be more important than that, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's one of the things that, we'll have. About 2 years ago, we had a lot right at the end of COVID, right as COVID was getting done. People wanted to get back into it, and people were, hey, can we come down? Can our church come down? We had a couple of churches, and had one guy get up there, and he just kind of started doing his own thing. And I said, well, wait a minute now. This is not about XYZ Church.
Yeah.
This is about loving these people right here.
Right.
And we had to pull him off a little bit and say, look, this is not about your personal agenda. This is not your personal agenda.
Yeah.
This is not your pulpit. This is a place where we're going to love on people.
Yeah.
And we're going to care for their basic needs today.
Today, right.
And we're going to pray with them, pray for them, and love them, and show that we care and start and foster relationships. Again, to me, that's the most important part.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then you go down there and yell at them that they're going to hell if they don't get their life together.
Oh, you're wasting your time.
You're wasting your time.
Yeah.
You're wasting your time.
Yeah. Well, this has not been a waste of time. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Wow. I have to.
We'll have you back on, and you can bring Mark and Greg with you next time.
I would love to have Mark and Greg because Mark, you know Mark and Greg, and let them talk about it, because I think the more we get it out to talk about Levee Church and 3LM and churches like Redemption and Life Church and Rush Chapel, Kurt Robbins at Rush Chapel and that men's group, when I went to talk to them about that, at first they were like, I don't know what we ought to do, and then finally once they did it and you saw their hearts, and I said, okay, they have hearts like mine, and it's you see this brotherhood and sisterhood begin to develop,
right? That
they really truly want to do this, and you see that oh my gosh, the blessings that you get from that, oh my gosh, Danny,
makes it all worth it, right?
It does.
Good stuff, man. Well, we're going to jump off right there. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on, like I said, we'll do it again, and
let's do it.
You guys got a website or anything?
Yes, we do. That's it's 3LM of Rome.com. There's a donate page. You can donate as much as you want or as little as you want. You can go there and see. I created the website, started our 501c3 back in May of 2022. And but we have a donate place. We have a place that kind of tells you what we do, who we serve, and I want to do more with it. We have corporate sponsorships, mostly churches, but we do have a corporate sponsorship here in town. It's J Supply.
Good deal.
I work at J Supply, and they donate to us each month, and we'd love to see some companies come in there and donate,
for sure,
and just help and be a part of the community, and to be a place for them. And it'd be a good thing for a company to get involved.
Absolutely.
With their community.
Yeah, good deal. All right. Well, thank you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
God bless you guys. We love you. See you next time. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.